For more on the latest ceasefire and the Geneva talks, let me turn to Randa Slim. She's the director at the Middle East Institute, a non-partisan think tank here in Washington, D.C. Randa, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me on.
We have seen repeated ceasefires come and go in Syria. What makes this one different?
It's not that different, except that we see more engagement from the Russians in making this work than before. It is an opportunity for both the Americans and the Russians to test working with each other. I mean by Americans, the Trump administration. So this is the first attempt by the two powers to try to work together on a ceasefire in Syria.
But can they really work together in Syria beyond the ceasefire when they have very different, diverging, long-term interests?
That's a question, you know, and the idea, as many American officials have said, is they hope that this formula that they have agreed on for a ceasefire in southwest Syria could set a precedent and be replicated somewhere else in Syria. The problem is that the conflict in Syria is no longer one conflict. It is many conflicts. And in each of these conflicts, you have different stakeholders. You have different agendas, different interests. And so what works in southwest Syria, in Dar'a, Qnaitra, might not necessarily work in Homs, might not necessarily work in Ifrin or in other parts.
Is that because of different factions that may be fighting on the ground?
Definitely. It's because of different factions, but also because of asymmetry of interest. I think because of the fact that this ceasefire in southwestern Syria affects the two most important allies for the United States in Syria, meaning Jordan and Israel, there is more interest on the part of the American administration as well as the American officials to put the time, the effort, the resource to make it work. Whereas in other parts of Syria, you don't have the same kind of engagement that you see from the American administration in southwest Syria.
Randa, how will this latest ceasefire be monitored? How will it be enforced? Who calls the shots?
That's what's still being worked on. And the same thing with the other de-escalation zones, which have been agreed upon in the Astana talks. And as you all know, there is an expert group that's meeting this week in Tehran to figure out the composition of these monitoring force, their mandate, which forces work in which areas. So this is still under debate and under discussion.
Are there too many different peace talks going on? You've got the ones sponsored by the United Nations in Geneva. You've got the ones by Russia, Iran, and Turkey and Astana. Are there simply too many players in this mess?
There are definitely too many players. So there is, as you said, the Geneva process taking place now, and this is the 7th round of the Geneva process. We have seen the Astana talks conclude last week, 5th round, and then there is the bilateral US-Russia with the Jordanian. The problem is that there is no coordinator overseeing all of these tracks, and so you have these disparate, disjointed, attempts at peacemaking, and yet nothing is being coordinated. So in a way, the whole is not greater than the sum of its parts as a result of that.
Well, you have to come back and explain as this peace process continues and we keep talking about negotiations and ceasefires. Randa Slim, a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.